1/12 plus 3/16. Okay. Once again, as we stated yesterday, anytime you're adding fractions, you must have common denominators on the fractions. Okay. The common denominator is the least common multiple between the two denominators. So in this case, the common denominator here is the LCM of 12 and 16. Okay, so if you were to count by 12s, if you're counting by 16s, eventually what number would you run into? That's your common denominator. And no, it's not 36. Okay, it's not 32 either. Because when I count by 12, 12, 24, 36, 48, 60. When I count by 16, 16, 32, 48, 54, or 64. So the common denominator for these two is 48. Okay, so we're going to make equivalent fractions with 48 on the bottom. Okay, and how we do that is we ask ourselves, what did we do to 16 to make it 48? Times 3, so we do the same thing at the bottom, we must do it to the top. So it gives me 9 over 48. What did we do to 12 to make it 48? By 4. So we did that on bottom, so we must do the same thing on top, making that 4 48s. Now that they have common denominators, I can do the same thing we did in the last section. Let's take 4 plus 9 over 18. 4 plus 9 is what? 13. And so that's 13. Oh, yes, give me 48. Okay, so that's 13 over 48. And that's your answer. Okay, so it's the same thing that we did last night with the exception of now you're going to have fractions that don't have the same denominator. You're going to have negatives, you're going to have positives, you're going to have mixed numbers, you're going to have improper fractions that you have to convert. Okay, let's look at this one. Negative 1/9 minus, doesn't require for you to say what, minus 5/18. Okay, now, I will say this, that personally, I prefer to do it vertically, like this right here. Okay? Because now I can make my fractions, the common denominator between 9 and 18 would be what? 18. So therefore I make my common denominator to be 18 on both the bottom of the fractions. Okay? Now, the other thing that you need to do here is this is plus and negative. So it needs to be plus and negative down here as well. Okay? Yeah, you're eager to learn today, my eye. All right, so you have 1 that we got to change. The 9 we did what to make it 18? Multiplied by 2. So we got to do the same thing at the top, which makes that negative 2. Negative sign you don't necessarily have to put there. It's just part of the problem. On bottom, what do we multiply 18 by? Multiplied by 1. So we do the same thing at the top. That makes it a negative 5. So we have negative 2 plus a negative 5. Negative 2 plus negative 5 would be what? Negative 7. And it would be negative 7 over 20. 18. Having trouble with those bottom numbers today, aren't I? So negative 7 over 18. Okay, that would be your answer. Like I said, you don't have to do it vertically. You know, I just, for me, it's better that way. Now let's look at some mixed numbers without common denominators. Let's say we have negative 3 and 3/4 plus 10 and 7/8. Okay. Now, we got to find common denominators first. Common denominator between the two fractions is what? 8. So 8 there, 8 there. So that should be 6 over 8, and this should be 7 over 8. Okay, now, the problem that you have is this, and this is where it becomes a little different. You have a negative and we have a positive. Okay, so we got to take the absolute values and subtract them. So that means I'm going to have 10 and 7/8 minus 3 and 6/8. Okay, what's 7 minus 6? 1/8. What's 10 minus 3? 7. So it's 7 and 1/8. Okay, now, my negative is with the smaller one, so it's a positive 7 and 1/8. Okay? Seven minus 6. Quit drumming. All right. Look at this one. 6 and 7/18 minus 8 and 21 over 54. Okay, now, some people go ahead and set the problem up beforehand. In other words, they'll go ahead and change this to 6 and 7/18 plus negative 8 and 21 54ths. Okay, and that tells me, since I have a positive and a negative, that I'm going to have to subtract the absolute values. And so basically, I can take the absolute value of those two, put it over here as 8 and 21 over 54 minus 6 and 7/18. Okay, so I've done the stuff here. Instead of getting the common denominator first, I went ahead and set the problem up. Now I can get the common denominator, and I don't have to switch it after that. Okay, and so the common denominator between 54 and 18 would be what? 54. So that's a 54 there and a 54 here, multiplied by 1 there, so I got to multiply by 1 there. Be 21. Multiplied by 3 here, multiplied by 3 here. Be what? 21. Okay. So now we have 21 minus 21. So that gives us 0 over 54. 8 minus 6 is 2. Well, 0 over 54 is just 0. So that would be 2. It's a negative because that sign right there is the larger absolute value. So it's negative 2. Okay, I want you to do this one on your own. 2 and 5/13 minus negative 1 and 1/2 . Yeah, negative 1 and 1/2. Okay, do that one on your own. I'll give you a couple of minutes. All right, who has an answer? Haley? Yes. 3 and 23 over 26. Okay, so first things first, you have 2 and 5/13. Change that to addition. Do the opposite of that, which is a positive 1 and 1/2. Okay, now the common denominator between the two is 26. So that has a 26 on the bottom. That has a 26 on the bottom. You want to stop, please, since you didn't get this right? You want to focus on what I'm doing? Yeah, and then I understand. That would be 10/26, and that would be 13/26, because we multiplied by 13 on the bottom here, so we do the same thing the top. Multiplied by 2 here, did the same thing the top. So you put 10 plus 13 together over 26, and 2 plus 1 together. That would be 3, and that would be 23 over 26. And that's your answer. Madison?
So where are you doing that thing where you subtract the top? When do we do that? Like on the other one we subtracted.
That was because we had a positive and a negative.
Oh.
When you have a positive and a negative, then you're subtracting their absolute values. Or if you have two positives, then the original problem was to subtract. For example, see if there's one in here. Yeah, 15 1/6. 15 1/6 minus 7 3/10. Okay. You can go plus and negative here. Okay, the common denominator is out of 6 and 10 would be 30. That would be 6 times 5 is 30, so multiply by 5 on top would be 5. 10 times 3 is 30, so multiply by 3 to the 3, and that would be 9. Okay, I have a negative and a positive, so therefore I've got to subtract their absolute values. That's going to give me 15 and 5 over 30 minus 7 and 9 over 30. Problem is I can't do 5 minus 9. Okay, you can't subtract those two, so I have to borrow. You borrow from the 15, making it 14. You getting this, Nicole, or are you just going to play with your hair? I have to borrow one from the 14, so I add 30 to the 5. So I take 30 plus 5, and that gives me 35 over 30. Okay, 35 minus 9 is 26 over 30. 14 minus 7 is 7. The larger absolute value is a positive, so it stays positive. But I have to take 7 and 26 over 30 and reduce it by 2 over 2. 2 goes into 26 13 times. 2 goes into 30 15 times. 7 and 13 15ths. Okay. All right, let's see here. Let's move to the D over 6 plus 2D over 9. Okay. Doesn't matter if you have variables in it. You still got to have common denominators, and you still do the same thing. Okay? For example, on this one, what's the common denominator between 6 and 9? 18. So I'm going to have a fraction that's 18 on the bottom. So what did we do to 6 to make it 18? Multiplied by 3. So I have to multiply D times 3, which is 3D. 2 times 9. So I have to do the same thing at top, so that makes it 4D. Okay, and I have 3D plus 4D over 18. So that would be 7D over 18. So try this one on your own. 3A over 2 minus A over 6. I'll give you a minute to do that one. Okay, who has an answer? Joshua. Do what? Yeah, you do. Now, you don't have to make it a mixed number, but you still have to simplify it. You're correct. It is 8A over 6. hang on. Okay, you're all wrong. Okay, so just don't panic. Here you have 3a over 2 plus negative a over 6. Common denominator between the two is 6. So 6 on the bottom here, 6 on the bottom there. Okay, what I do to 2 to make it 6, I multiply it by 3. So that makes 9a on top. What I do here, I multiply it by 1. So that makes a on bottom, negative a. So I have 9a plus a negative 1a. 9 plus negative 1 is 8a. Okay, 8a over 6, once again, is just like yesterday. That's an equivalent expression, 8 over 6 times a over 1. 8 over 6 can be reduced by dividing by 2. Dividing by 2. 2 into 8 goes 4 times, 2 into 6 goes 3 times. Times a over 1, which would make 4a over 3. Oh, good. I'll sleep better tonight knowing that. Okay. So that's how you would get 4a over 3. Yes. Okay, negative 5w over 12 plus 7w over 9. Okay. Realistically, you've got to understand that this is exactly the same problem. Okay, if I don't have the w's in there, I do exactly the same thing. Okay, common denominator between 12 and 9 would be what? 36. Okay, 3 times 12 is 36, so negative 15 on top. Multiplied here by 4. So 4 times 7, which is 28 on top. What's negative 15 plus positive 28? What is negative 15 plus positive 28? 13 over 36. Now just put the w back on there. That's all you're doing. Okay, the w does not play effect in the process of what you're doing. Okay, it only affects the answer in the sense of I got to have the w in the answer, and I do have to know if the w is the same on both of them. Okay, so that's, don't make it harder than it is just because they put a variable in there and everybody starts freaking out. All right, your homework, 5.3, through 32, and 36 through 44. Okay, so we got about 7 minutes left. I'd go ahead and start it.